Good afternoon, folks. I'm Winston Kelly with the NASCAR Hall of Fame, and for a little Bank of America weekend rain afternoon insight, we've got a couple of members of the class of 2015 in the NASCAR Hall of Fame. We also have family members who are going to be at the drivers' meeting and be introduced to the crowd from our other members of the NASCAR Hall of Fame. Chris Lorenzen is with us here representing his father, Fred Lorenzen. We also have members of Wendell Scott's family and members of Joe Weatherly's family. And of course with us, as part of the 2015 class, Rex White, the 1960 NASCAR what was in Grand National Series champion, and the 1988 what was in Winston Cup Series champion, Bill Elliott. So have a couple of questions for them, and then we'll open it up to folks here in the media. And Rex, let's start with you. You know, when you think back over what's happened just over the past several months since you were selected to go into the NASCAR Hall of Fame, how have things changed, or have things changed for you with people recognizing you, calling you, because you've been more out of the business for a while? So talk about that. Grab the microphone there if you would.
Everything's changed. Nothing is normal now. It's unbelievable how my popularity increased. Fan mail, unbelievable. It's just a great honor to be inducted, and just unbelievable honored.
What's the most unusual letter or outreach that you got, and this is a family environment?
I guess just the increase in fan mail. I get quite a bit of mail from Germany now. I get mail from Afghanistan, the soldiers wanting autographs and pictures. I guess that might be the biggest thing. Plus, sitting up here, being in front of all the press and everything, and also that's big.
A lot more people. Quite this many people back in 1960.
No, a lot more people wanted to talk to me for some reason.
It's because it says NASCAR Hall of Famer beside it. Bill, you had a period of time that you weren't around as much, and now you went from being Chase's dad to NASCAR Hall of Famer and back out there. What are some of the things that have happened with you related to the NASCAR Hall of Fame? We'll talk about Chase's deal later, but from your perspective.
Well, it's like what Rex alluded to. You know, you get a lot more mail from the standpoint of wanting you because you have been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and that has really changed because, you know, over the past probably several years, you know, there's still been a lot of fan mail come because I hadn't been out of the limelight that long. Well, I have a pretty long time, but you know, in the whole scheme of things. But I think that's the most important part. And just like what Rex said, there's so many other things that have come along that because of your involvement with the Hall of Fame and what the induction will be in January and all the stuff that involves is just changed so much.
Talk some about your involvement with Chase's career, not so much this year, because you seem to have taken a little bit of whether it's a backseat or a side seat role. You know, you're still there a lot, but you're a little
moral support.
Moral support. Talk about your involvement through his early teenage years and what your role was with him and helping develop him.
Well, you know, first off, I told him right off the bat, I said, you know, if you want to drive a race car, but don't do it on my account. You know, do it for your own personal enjoyment or whatever how you want to get out of it. But you know, early on, you know, we started going to go-kart races and stuff, and I think when we lived in Colorado, the 2 years was kind of really the turning point because he really kind of got the attitude that, hey, I really like this, I really wanted to do this, and you know, he was really good at it, and as he continued on, you never know what the next step was going to bring, and you know, I tried to move him around and keep him going and keep him paced in different things and doing a lot of different stuff to where you didn't get in a rut of just doing the same thing every week. And I think that was, to me, that was an important part of what his career was all about. And when he finally got in late model stuff, it's like, you know, this kid does a really good job, and he uses his head, and he seems to be able to have good car control and do the things, and he always seems to know what he wants. And I think that's 95% of the game in this sport, is knowing what you want as a driver. And from that point, it's just been a stepping stone from one point to the next.
And before we turn it over to the group here, focusing on tonight's Bank of America 500, and in particular, the current system to determine the Sprint Cup champion. You guys had similar systems, although the points were accumulated different back in 1960, 1988. What do you guys think about the current point system and the excitement it seems to have brought, and would you like to have raced with that type of point system? Rex?
I don't know. I still like the old system, but maybe that's normal. It's hard to, it's right now, it's so close and so tough. I don't know if I could stand it.
Bill, how about you?
Well, I'm kind of like Rex. I really am still on the fence one way or the other, but I think from the fan standpoint and what I hear out there, the fans really have embraced it and really enjoy it because it is a different. But usually change brings a lot of followers to it. But I listened to the interview with Dale Jr. a while back, and he said the more I thought about it, the more I really liked it. And but the bad thing about it, you get to Dale, yeah, it's great as long as you can run good. But if you have a weekend like you had the past weekend, and you're way back in points, you're coming to this weekend, it's do or die and you go to Talladega next weekend, you don't know what's going to happen. So, it puts a lot of stress on the old crew members.
Yeah, I bet it does.
And the driver.
Questions for folks here in the media? We'll start with Jenna and just kind of go across the row here.
Jennifer, AP. Bill, are you Awesome Bill Hall of Famer, or are you starting to be Chase's dad?
I'm only Chase's dad anymore. I mean, the rest of it's kind of fallen way short because there was a gentleman that stopped me and got autographed a while ago, and he said he watched me early in my career, and he said this is something about Bill's, my son's Chase, and I said no, I'm just Chase's dad. That's all I am anymore. So
is that what you sign on your autographs?
that's what I'm going to start signing.
Okay.
And also, sorry to ask you all these Chase questions, but you are Chase's dad. It looks like he's going to win this nationwide championship. I mean, did you have, I know that he's continued to impress you, but did you have any idea in this first season that it would go as well as it has?
I had no idea. I mean, you look back at last year and you think the ideal place to have been would have probably been at Turner Motorsports because of the performance of those guys. And, when we started, and all this happened at the very last second, the way everything came down and where we ended up at Junior Motorsports and with Napa and the whole last second put together deal. And, when it finally came together and when I went and tested at Daytona and I drove Junior's nationwide car down there, I just felt really good about the year. It just felt like everything was coming together very well, and this team could really break out and do exceptional things, and they really have. I mean, from what Kevin's brought to the table, what Ernie Cope's brought to the table, and what Greg has been able to do for Chase as a crew chief, I think that's been very important for his whole career and where he's at today. But, where it ends up at the end of the year, I mean, he's done a very good job of racing. I mean, I watch him race after race after race and what he's been able to do with the car and where he ends up and how he positions himself. And anything can happen in the last three races, but to this point, he has done a very, very good job.
This is for Bill. Daniel McFadden with Sporting News. There's a CD that's being sold somewhere in the infield that's more than a few years old.
I thought you had to pay them to take it. You have to. Whenever you get the CD, they give you $5 or $10.
Yeah, but it's a CD of old country songs about racing sung by drivers like yourself. Do you remember any of the lyrics for Crazy Racing Man, track number 5?
Unfortunately, Chase played it for me coming down here yesterday.
You did?
Somebody got I don't know if he bought the tape or whatever, but he got a copy of the tape. This was back before Rex. I mean, this was a bad deal. This one of them things, if you don't want anything to hear anything about it, just don't do it. You know what I mean?
Now, you need to get a copy of the album that was done earlier with Richard and Pearson and Buddy Baker and those guys. So.
Yeah. Probably Richard and them probably bought them all, and there was none of them left.
Did you have another question?
Yeah. Also, what was it like filming that commercial with Chase and Dale Jr. where you remember what it was like to be 18?
I had a good time. I really didn't know Dale Jr. I knew him reasonably well throughout the years I raced against him and when he was coming around, but it seems like this year he's such a different person. It seems like he's at peace with a lot of things and he's very relaxed. And I had a great time. We shot it here. Only took one day. We did it in probably a half a day. and it was a lot of fun. And what I say is I took one for the team. I took a bullet for the team on that one, if you know what I mean.
Love the hairdo.
Yeah, I do too.
Aaron Burns, National Speed Sport News. This is a question for Rex and Bill, either whenever you can decide who goes first. I'm just curious who your number one hero is in racing.
I'm beginning to like Kyle Larson because he's really coming along. I was a Mark Martin fan, and Mark retired, but I seen Chase run a late model late model cars at Middle Georgia, Cordele Racetrack when he was little, and I couldn't believe it. And he wore them out that day. They had a lot of red flags, so I'm a fan of Chase also. He's doing a great job, and I really think he's going to have a great career ahead of him.
I would say in racing, in race in general, I've had a lot of drivers that I was fans of, but the one person I really thought a lot of was Leonard Wood. I mean, Leonard was, because I worked on my race car early on in my career, and we'd go to the race, and I was just fascinated what Leonard could do with a car. I mean, he was just so impressive of what he did and how he did it, meticulous, and, they always had race cars that run up front and ran good, and, when I came over and drove for Lynn and Eddie those few years at the Woods Brothers, and Leonard was a key part of that whole deal.
Okay, I've got a quick follow-up, too, for Rex. Right up here to your right, Rex.
Rex, got another one over here.
Yeah, right here, sorry. Just curious, was there a driver that you looked up to when you were a kid, too? Anybody that you followed by any chance?
Actually, I looked up to Frankie Snyder more as a driver. A lot of people might know him. He won a lot of races, and he's run modified. He even run Grand National race with me in '57 with the Chevrolet race team. But really, he taught me more about a race car than anybody I know to be around. And I'm really indebted to Frankie for the rest of my life.
Oh. Mike, come on.
Mike Hembry, USA Today. Bill, now that Chase appears to be able to support himself, are you through with driving?
That is a $64 question. I would still like at some point in time have the opportunity to do it again, but there again, I'm not out soliciting. You look around and there's very few places to go anymore. The teams have changed. The complexity of the sport has changed so much, and right now I'm just happy with where I'm at. It seems to be, whatever destiny is, it is, and go from there.
Okay. Kenny and Bob, and then we'll go back here.
Kenny Bruce with NASCAR.com. Rex, you retired in your mid-30s. Why did you stop racing at that time, and what did you do after you got out of racing?
The reason I stopped racing, I didn't have money to sponsor a car. Very simple. I went to work for a Chrysler Plymouth dealership in Forest Park, Georgia, started making more money than I did racing, and just never got back in it.
Bob, and back here with Kyle.
Bob Potterer, Sporting News. Bill, last night Chase didn't really want to talk about how big a lead he had in the points because he was upset over his restarts. Do you expect him to, or did you kind of think he would be like that in the sense of not really kind of being happy with the end result, but focusing on what he kind of did wrong?
Well, I think he's done a very good job of what he tries to look back on what he did mistake-wise and get better, because that's the only way you're going to do it in this sport. But at the end of the day, you've still got to look at where you're at. You can win the battle, but you got to win the war at the end of the day. And for us and for him, I said, after the race, I said, look, you got to just, the way the circumstances fell of the race kind of went against what strategy Greg had put in for the race. And, some days you got to take it, whether you're, Chad on the box or, Alan or any of the guys on any of the crew chiefs, they make the calls, and you kind of start with a strategy, and you can't help how the race plays out. And for him, like, for example, if you go back to the race here in the spring and look at how it unfolded, I don't think anybody wrecked the whole race. There was very few cautions, and then last night was a total exception to the rule. You know, so you can't sit down and say, well, we should have done this or we should have done that. You just look at it. We come out of here. We had a good points night. If you look at it from that side, yeah, you wished he could have finished better, but some days you just got to take your licks and go on to the next race.
Time for one more back here.
Kyle McCurry, My Fox Carolinas. I noticed this with some other Hall of Famers, particularly Alice Cooper at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. As soon as he got in, he started naming off other bands that he thought should be in the Hall of Fame at that point, kind of taking on that position as a Hall of Famer to be able to put support behind other folks. So I wonder for both of you, at this point, now that you're going to be in the Hall, that you're in the Hall of Fame, what's the next person you feel like should be in there?
That's
Well,
you,
I
Rex.
think Curtis Turner would be close. Boy, it's hard for me to name them all, but there's a lot of people that's qualified to go in the Hall of Fame. But one thing I want to say about a driver today, any driver is going to lose more races than he wins. So you got to learn how to be a good loser, and it'll make you a better winner also.
You need to tell Chase that. Yeah, I agree with Rex on that. I mean, you know, you look around and all the drivers and that deserve to be in there, and there's a lot of them. There's a lot of guys that deserve to be in there that put a lot into this sport, did a lot of things, and you know, I'm just very appreciative to be sitting here today as part of the Hall of Fame in the future, and you know, there'll be guys from this point on that'll come into it, and you know, it's a great program, great deal, and I'm looking forward to it.
Well, on that note, we're looking forward to it. Put on your calendars, January the 30th, 2015, we will be inducting these fine gentlemen, along with Fred Lorenzen, Joe Weatherly, and Wendell Scott. Have a great rest of the day. Gentlemen, thanks a lot for your time.